karon sir nga we know nga kining habits is the key for a change, no, in all aspect of our lives. Why most people are so or hesitant in terms of changing a healthy habits?
Mm. This is a very universal experience. Um, Trying to change and doing that by establishing new habits. It might be said acquiring new habits for habits that you've never tried before. Why is that difficult? It's a very common question. In fact, there's a quotation that's attributed to St. Paul. I think it's in the Bible, it's in the Holy Book. I cannot say it verbatim, but the idea was I don't understand why it's so difficult for me to do what I intend to do. That is, St. Paul is saying or asking himself why it's so difficult to be changing himself, to be changing a habit. If it's a bad habit that you want to transform into a good one, St. Paul, and this is just an example of just how widespread this dilemma is. It's not just your problem or mine. It's the problem of so many people. In fact, again, I keep going back to this because it's a very relevant experience. When the pandemic started, masking as a habit was very difficult to establish. A lot of people found it very difficult. It's just wearing a mask, you know. Behaviorally speaking, it's picking up a mask, putting it on, and leaving it on until you're back home safely. That's what it involves, right? But the question raises, and I think underlines that dilemma. Why was it so difficult for so many people? And it's not just Filipinos. We did fairly well, by the way, with the masking mandate. We knew somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, I think after the first year of the pandemic, that compared to most other populations, the Filipino population were very good at having established that habit of masking compared to a lot of other cultures. Not to say anything about other cultures, but it does say something about why is it so hard to establish um, even a good habit, right? Well, my thinking draws me back to um, two theories: the theory of planned action and self-determination theory. Somewhere along the uh, meeting of these two theories, the theory of planned action and self-determination theory, is the idea of what's called an intention behavior. When you ask why is it so difficult to start a new habit or to establish even a positive habit, um, it makes me think about that concept called the intention behavior gap. What that is, according to St. Paul, is me having the intention to change a particular habit, but not being able to translate that plan into action. So there's a gap between my plan to change a habit or to adopt a new habit and doing something about it so that I can start doing that habit. For example, I have the intention of going vegan, right? Eating vegetables and fruits and not eating any sort of meat. That's an intention. That's a plan that I have. That's a goal I have in my mind. Yet to this day, despite having planned that for myself and despite intending to start that habit, I have yet to actually be successful in translating this habit, in translating this plan of a habit to become actual behavior. There's a gap there. So, um, the first my first answer to this question of why is it so hard is because there's that gap. Now, of course, this begs the question, what causes that gap then? Why is there a gap between our intentions and our behaviors? Um, it's a very difficult question. And again, it's a question that has been raised over and over again, as I said earlier, even by St. Paul himself. Why is it so hard for me to do the things I want to do, and so easy for me, because there's a second part of that quotation, and so easy for me to do the things I don't want to do, right? So there might be an intention, for example, not to drink anymore. Um, New Year's resolutions. This is the stuff of New Year's resolutions too. We have New Year's resolutions which go something like, I don't want to drink as much alcohol as I did the previous year. Meaning, I want to cut back on my alcohol intake. That can go for gambling, it can go for smoking, it can go for sex, it can go for other activities. Um, but whatever it is, the idea is to cut back. That's the intention. But many people fail in putting that intention into real action, into concrete behavior, to form or to change um, a bad habit into a good one, right? Um, what lies behind, and I think I'll end here with regards this response to the second question of why it's so difficult. Personally, after my graduate thesis, I found out that there are not just dualities, but that as human beings we often try to break down our experience. We try to synthesize our experience by first breaking it into smaller parts. And I think that's the reason behind the intention behavior gap. The reason is because we don't find, um, we don't, well, sometimes we don't even bother looking for the connections between our plans or our intentions and our behaviors. In other words, we consider them differently. There's a good term which I've been hearing quite a lot of at the start of the year, and it's called silo. People silo experiences. When we say silo, we mean we segregate experiences. We categorize experiences, classify them, name them, and we say this is a behavior, this is a feeling, this is a thought, this is an intention, this is a plan, this is action, etc. We put them into small boxes. There's nothing wrong with this because most of the times it makes life simple. But I believe in the intention behavior gap that theorists from the theory of planned action and self-determination theory have been looking on for decades. This is decades of research. This is a fruit of decades of research for both these groups of scholars or researchers. I think this is a personal hunch, something born out of clinical practice rather than experimentation or any other type of method, is that when we silo our experiences, we lose the connections. We fail to see that it's not just intentions without connection to your behaviors. It doesn't mean that when we categorize all this, we might be right in the categorization. But even if we're right in having siloed them this way, what happens is we lose the connection. And it's when we don't bother to look at what is the connection between my plan and my behavior. My intention to adopt a habit, to change a habit, to alter a habit, and my behavior of actually doing that. When we forget that connection, the intention behavior gap widens. So One way, for example, I'm sure you're gonna ask this in the next few minutes, but uh, just to put the cart, um, before the horse, it can be said, I can say that one way of making that difficulty less difficult is by constantly reviewing your plans, constantly reviewing your intentions, and then asking yourself what the bridges, connections, or the links are between that intention to say to be vegan and the behavior of actually being vegan. When you draw that connection and when you keep coming back to that, I think it will narrow the intention behavior gap and it will make what was once difficult a bit easier.